Our ray of sunshine is here. Welcome to the After the Show podcast today with Murphy, Sam, Jodi, and Taylor, our oldest daughter.
Yes.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. You're one of our favorite guests ever. The last time we did a podcast with you, it was about doggy daycare.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun. I know Mr. Sam has lots I'm sure he wants to talk to you about, but I thought today we should focus on what one of the coolest things about Taylor is what you've decided to do with your life, your career path, and where you are in that. So share with everybody and let's go there.
What do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
Well, I just recently got into graduate school.
Shout out.
For clinical mental health counseling.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot of different routes you can take. And there's a lot of different like concentrations in therapy that I am really interested in. And that's even something I mentioned in my interviews. Like I'm one of the reasons I want to go to grad school is because I'm not entirely sure which path I want to take because there's so many options. But ultimately, like I want to practice being a safe space to people. And I love that. I love the value in that, being able to be there for somebody whenever they can't find that space in anybody else.
And honestly, what's so funny about this, we've talked about this a lot over the years at home, but in the last few years, you've really honed in on this is what you want. And I heard you said that to me once. We were sitting in the family room.
Yeah.
I'd had a really bad day. And you were like, you can talk to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to lay my problems on you, child. You're my baby. And then you were like, everybody needs a safe space. And you weren't inviting me to drop anything on you. But I thought that was a cool, I just think you're doing the right thing. You definitely were made for mental health.
You have, since you were little, you have always been that way, Taylor. Looking out for others, caring about others. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you think that part of what you'll learn in grad school will be how to take care of yourself while also helping others?
Absolutely, yes.
That has to be a part of it, right?
So one of the main things they teach you in the very beginning, from what I've heard, is that you need to have your own counselor. Not only does it help you, understand what it's like to be in the client's shoes, the person who is receiving therapy, but it also is important for you to keep yourself in check as well because you're a human too. Like therapists aren't robots.
Right.
And so they actually in my interview process they mentioned that the faculty would be checking in on you, and obviously these faculty members are all counselors. They would be checking in on you and you would be having your own little debriefs. And you are also just encouraged to have a therapist, go to therapy, do the things you need to do for yourself, keep that in check, because whenever you're a counselor, and we talked a lot about this too at my orientation, you need to like be able to put your coat at the door. Once you get into a session, once you're talking to somebody, it is not about you anymore. It just can't be because, like I said, if you want to be able to hold that space for somebody, you need to let go of your biases. You need to let go of what's bothering you for the day and tune in and actively listen to someone. And that's a really hard thing to do. So that's why they encourage you have your own counselors because your stuff still needs to go somewhere. It just can't be in, that session with your client.
You're talking about having your own counselor, not just as a student, but once you graduate professionally through life, you're going to have
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I actively go to therapy right now, and it's...
Well, you need it in that family.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's
nice.
Good one, Sam.
Hey, high five to me.
It served me for a long time too, and it has also given me, what's also cool about going to therapy and wanting to become a therapist is that I get to ask my therapist for tips, so it's kind of cheating.
Oh, cool.
I guess, in a way.
It's also, too, I guess, a unique field because, if you went to grad school for engineering or any of those, it's like, here's the work, you do the work. Whereas this, you're saying they're still going to be checking up on you
Of course.
through the whole period to make sure you're coping and doing.
Yeah, absolutely. They were really adamant about making sure our whole cohort is really connected to each other, and that we're all working as a community too towards each other. And that was one of the first things I felt when I went in for my interview. Like, I was so nervous to go in for my interview, and the minute I got in, I was like, oh, this is going to be fine, because it was so easy to talk to everyone because we all had that shared interest, and we all, since, you know, empathy is such a crucial part of counseling, probably the most important thing
Sure.
to have, everyone was so warm and welcoming. And even throughout the process of, you know, emailing with like the faculty director, the program director, you know, it's been nothing but warmth and kindness. And so I think that's what it's just meant to be. Is it's hard. It's going to be a very hard road because there's going to be a lot of clinical hours and practicum and things like that. But
You have to read the whole DSM-5, don't you? I just like saying DSM-5 because
I don't know what it means.
yeah, I never knew what that was.
Until the DSM-6 comes
Right.
out.
Taylor was the first one the first time I'd ever heard of DSM-5, but it's basically the Bible of psychology, right? Or counseling.
Yes, so it's every single medically recognized mental disorder
Okay.
in a giant textbook.
And you have that textbook.
I do.
Your boyfriend, her boyfriend gave it to
My
her
boyfriend,
as a gift.
yeah.
Here's a gift.
And what's funny is, like, I want to say the next semester I needed it for a class. So thank
Perf.
you, Alan Michael.
Yeah.
For that.
Perf.
But yeah, I'm really excited because everyone there seems so kind-hearted, and we're all kind of on the same journey. And I think that's gonna be really cool.
I do too. So there are two things that I want to mention. This should be the proud dad here that Mr. Murphy is. You know, you had your doubts about getting into grad school. You took a year.
did.
You took a little hall pass of a year to kind of breathe after you got your degree, which is fantastic. But you had some challenges that concerned you, but you pushed through those. So why don't you explain those?
Okay.
Mom and I are really proud of you for that.
So most graduate school programs, and I will also say this, most graduate school programs are moving away from this. But some of them still require that you take this exam called the GRE, and it's essentially like the ACT or the SAT for graduate school. It's
Okay.
highly generalized, and
That's a typical diagnostic kind of test.
right, it's just supposed to, it's a placement test.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to, I guess, help you out,
Help them out.
boosting your application. I guess so.
Yeah.
I
would
did
think.
not make the required. I've taken the GRE twice now. I did not make the required score.
You were
On
close,
the
but still.
application, I was close, but I did not make the score that they wanted. And I was very mad about that because the GRE is expensive. It's an expensive test, and it's also does not have anything to do with the graduate program that I was getting into, and that's how most of, you know, graduate programs are with the GRE. And I guess that's why I get frustrated about it because, you know, the GRE is generalized and graduate school programs are highly
Specialized.
specialized.
Almost
So-
exactly
Does
like
it
the
make
standardized
sense?
test you took in high
Right.
school. Same
Right.
thing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you just, but I feel lucky that, you know, I got in because I still had to write personal statements. You know, I had to write a personal statement to get in. I had to obviously show them my GPA and get letters of recommendation and my resume. And I'm fortunate enough to, in my undergraduate experience, be able to cultivate relationships and, you know, have experiences that did bolster my application, I would say.
Yeah.
And also my interview, I felt like it went pretty well at the same time as well. So, I mean, yeah, that hurdle really, like, it made me feel less confident in my ability to get in. But then, you know, I just had to realize that graduate schools mainly look at your application really holistically and not just by grades. And my GPA wasn't in bad shape either.
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
But
I just think it's fantastic that you didn't stop because supposedly the score would be the thing that wouldn't let you
Yeah.
in.
Right.
The
Kept
passion that
trying.
you have for it. I mean, obviously, by the time you were able to do an interview in person, the authentic you who genuinely cares about people, to me, is what shines. And you said that that's really what you felt like in the room with everybody else, right?
I
That's
did.
that common bond.
Yeah, I was insanely nervous before my interview because I was going down this huge rabbit hole the night before where I was just like going on forums online, like, what do I need to prepare for? Because it was my first interview. I had no idea what to anticipate. And then the minute I walked into the room, it was just like a breath of fresh air, and everything that I had rehearsed the night before left my brain, and I just
And that is
did
so
what I was
normal.
going
When
to
you're
do.
nervous, nerves are that way.
Yeah.
Nerves are the enemy, if
Mm-hmm.
you can just breathe, but everybody experiences nerves. Proud mom moment here is that I have zero doubt, that you are doing the right thing for you, wherever it takes you. We don't know if you'll have a practice one day where your people are coming to see you for an hour at a time, or you'll work in some sort of, company, or there's always a need for mental health professionals.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah.
There, you are going to be helping this world, one person, one human at a time. But I swear, there's no doubt in my mind, this is where you belong. Something that is true for anybody who's ever been to therapy, or if you've ever talked to a counselor, even just once to help you get through a problem. Somewhere in that time spent, they will say something to you that sticks, that can help you, that changes, and that's all it takes. You end up doing the work, but sometimes it's one thing said, and you've said stuff to me over your childhood. Not when you were 4, but even lately when we talk about stuff. We had a conversation recently about depression. We were just talking about people in our lives, and you said, Mom, depression is really comfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa. And you explained it a little bit more, and you can even drop here what you meant, but I just thought, wow, I always remember that now.
Yeah, I guess what I was referring to is that, like, depression, it can feel like a pit, and it feels easier just to kind of sit with it and not do anything about it once you're really deep in it. And that's what makes it so difficult. And and I'm sure every single person in their life has gone through a bout of depression at one point or another. I know, like, during, COVID especially, like that, that was a difficult time for a lot of people where, depression was strong, especially since, couldn't do anything, couldn't leave the house.
Right.
But yeah, it's one of those things that it's really easy, I think, when you're not on that side of depression and you feel like you're in a good place. When someone else is experiencing depression, I think it's easy sometimes to glaze over it and act like, oh, come on, you can get out of bed. You can brush your teeth.
Snap out of it.
You can do those. Yeah. And that's exactly what, we as, future counselors want to try to avoid as much as possible, is just glazing over that and acting like, problems that we don't experience aren't real problems.
It's
See?
a weird. It's
You just did
that's
it again,
beautiful.
right there.
It's an odd trap because the deeper that you go into it, you actually can't see logically out of it. It skews you, and so that's the reason. If your perspective is messed up, then it's not as easy as snap out of it, right?
Of course, yeah.
So here's another thing that Taylor did. I guess it could have been to prep for this, but it was great experience. Is doing the crisis hotline.
Yes, that's been one of my favorite experiences that I've ever done.
Which is a volunteer activity, right?
Yes.
Crisis counseling.
I wouldn't call it an activity.
Oh, okay.
I would call
I'm
it
sorry.
It's counseling.
A service.
support.
You
Right.
volunteer.
You're
You
right.
volunteered to do crisis counseling,
Yes.
and you helped people. You log on, and you're there as an anonymous, safe space.
Yes, and then the people on the other line are also anonymous to me as well. One of the things, and the reason that I talk about my high value on being a safe space actually is because of the crisis line. It really taught me that, because crisis counselors are not professional, licensed counselors. Therefore, you can't administer advice. You can't tell them what to do, and you also can't have your own bias added in as well. Like, if someone is at that point where depression is really a lot for them, you can't suggest something from your own personal life or your own personal experiences or your own general opinion about what they should do. You're supposed to try and guide them into a conversation that empowers them so they can figure out what they can do.
Correct.
And that can be hard because, we have our own thoughts on, oh, well, you should do this and you should, but you're not helping someone as much as you think they are, especially if you don't know them at all. If you don't know anything about their circumstances and you're judging them based on one conversation, you have to let them lead.
Yeah.
And sometimes what I found is just by being that space for someone, just being like, okay, well, I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to let you vent, and I'm going to try and lead you down a path that will calm you down in this moment. I've found that it makes people feel so much better and, just bringing them down from really like high situations. It can be really hard. And the first time I ever did it and I saw that a texter like really got support out of that and they thanked me, I got this like feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, because
awesome.
It felt necessary. And we need more people like that in the world every single day. Like it is an important job, crisis counseling, and I think it's something that people may overlook or take for granted sometimes. But it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Just to be a space for somebody who needs it.
What's been great about that, is Jodi can tell you. So Sam, every now and then we would be like, getting ready for dinner or whatever, and Taylor's like, I'm gonna do some crisis counseling right now. You just sit down at the laptop and
leave me alone. I'm gonna help some people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's awesome. And the reason I think this podcast is a good share is for anybody. It doesn't matter whether it's psychology, counseling, engineering, science, whatever it is that you want to go into. When you can pull from your personal passion is not always going to be your vocation, but it certainly can be the thing that drives you to try things, to prepare for it, so that when the opportunity presents itself, you know what the match is.
Absolutely. That's how I found out I was in the right place in my interview, because ultimately the grades, the experiences, it won't matter if your heart's not in it.
Right.
And this is
so true.
This is like, I feel like very basic advice for interviews or anything like that, but just be yourself and make sure that you love what you're doing or you love what you're about to go into, because I feel like that's what put me in the position to just kind of like let go of everything I'd been rehearsing in my mind and just say what came from the heart, and it happened to work out.
That's beautiful.
Our baby girl.
Yeah.
From Taylor, from everything that you've learned and the knowledge that you've gained in school, tell us what you've learned about your mom's personality.
Since I'm the head case?
No. I was going to do Murphy too, but
okay.
What I've learned about my mom's personality? I'll tell you what I've learned about both my mom and my dad.
Yeah, great.
Oh, gosh.
They are very...
So just for clarity, that's Murphy and Jodi. We are Taylor's parents.
Right. They are both... I think a lot of where I get my passion from is from them. I think they are both very passionate and can be stubborn, but also, in that regard, also very, headstrong. Mm-hmm. I think I get that from them a lot. And yeah, I think that they are a big part of what has led me to the success I feel like I've been getting. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. So
sweet.
That's very sweet.
That's not the answer he was hoping for.
I'm
sorry. They're crazy. They're crazy.
So do you think are Mom and I more alike, or are we different?
I think you guys are more alike than you may even be willing to admit. I think both of you are very passionate people. And I think that's why I am too. And then I think that's awesome. I think that's a good thing.
Thank you, baby.
Of course.
All right, we're going to let you go. I know you have to go to work.
Well, this was a great share. And hopefully it benefits somebody.
Yeah, what's the copay on this one?
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.